Hello, welcome back to the Watford Way. I hope you guys are having a fantastic summer, and I'm here today to talk about the latest Watford news, and that news being that the recent fan forum was held at the club's training ground in London, Colney. Gino, Pozzo and Scott Duxbury were both in attendance, as was Cristiano Gioretta and Ben Manga, and they were grilled by Watford supporters for over 2 hours in regards to transfers, finances, and the overall running of the club and their vision for Watford going forward into the future. Now, there was many points made at the fan forum. For me personally, I don't think we learn lots, but we did learn a few things. I've made some bullet points here on a list I've got next to me, which I'll discuss with you in just a moment. But first, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe by clicking the button down below. Let me know your thoughts on the fan forum in the comments. Has your confidence in Gino Pozzo increased since the forum, or are you still feeling a bit indifferent about his ownership? Let me know in the comments section down below. And as always as well, it does help me out a lot if you could leave a like on the videos. That would be much appreciated. Now, getting into some of the key points from the fan forum that I have on my bullet point list next to me. As I said, it went on for over 2 hours. I was following the forum from Andrew French's live blog in the Watford Observer. I know Adam Leventhal has also wrote an article on it. Audio was meant to be released. Unfortunately, that got changed at the last minute. But as I said, massive props to everyone involved in organising this. I think Do Not Scratch Your Eyes and the guys from the rookie end played a massive part in actually, pulling this together and, organising the whole thing, really. So massive props to them guys and anyone else who was involved in the whole event, really. I think it was much needed. I think we needed to speak to Gino. It was long overdue, 10 years overdue, if you will. So yeah, it was a much needed event. So thank you guys for getting it organised. And yeah, in regards to the points I've got next to me, I think we'll start with Gino Pozzo. He basically spoke for 5 or 10 minutes at the start with an opening statement, which was very refreshing actually to hear from Gino firsthand. And one of the first questions of the evening, and it come up numerous times actually, was in regards to Watford's manager policy. And now when I say manager policy, I mean the constant hiring and firing of managers, and whether this is kind of a deliberate policy that the club look to implement and something they'll continue doing going forward. And essentially, Gino Pozzo said, yes, we will continue to do that going forward until we find the right person. He referenced back to Javi Gracia and essentially said, Javi Gracia was one of the longest serving coaches at Watford in their time. We achieved one of our highest Premier League finishes ever. We got to the FA Cup final. Javi was here for over a year, which is quite a long time in Gino Pozzo terms. And yeah, I suppose as supporters, what we wanted to hear was, no, they'll look to stick with, Valérien Ismaël for the foreseeable future. But actually, they didn't really say that. They said that if they feel a change is needed and a change is required to improve results on the pitch, then that's what they'll do. And you have to remember as well, Gino Pozzo, Scott Duxbury, Gioretta, Ben Manga, whether you like it or not, they are present at the training ground every day, every week, every month, every year. So they have a clear view of the training the manager's implementing, how the players are feeling, and how the players are training during the week. And if they feel a change is needed from what they've seen, Gino Pozzo essentially said they won't hesitate to make the change. So I'm sorry, Watford fans, if you're hoping that Gino Pozzo is going to change his policy on firing and hiring managers, I think you'll be mistaken. Hopefully, they've selected Valérien Ismaël as a good candidate. They seem very impressed with his CV. They spoke about the interview he held with the club, and how he feels he can thrive in the environment what currently have built around him. So I think that's positive news as well. But yeah, a bit gutting that we're going to continue on this policy of, constantly hiring and firing until we find that right guy. I don't think, for me personally, that's the way we should look to operate. But ultimately, I don't own the club. You don't own the club. Gino Pozzo is the owner, and if that's what he wants to do, that's what he can do. So a bit disappointing from that perspective, but yeah, hopefully they seem quite positive in Valérien Ismaël. Hopefully we find the right guy in him, and yeah, hopefully the season coming up will be a good one for Watford fans as well. Very rarely at this fan forum did Gino Pozzo say sorry. In fact, I don't think he said sorry once, but very rarely did he admit he got something wrong. And this point here is one of the only times where he really said that the club and himself had really got this wrong, and that was in keeping players for too long at the club. So, for example, in recent years, you look at Dan Gosling, Tom Cleverley, Craig Cathcart, aging players, really, experienced professionals, don't get me wrong, class players in previous seasons. However, he did admit that sometimes we had kept players for too long. And I think for me, that's a really positive admission to hear from Gino, because I think we can all agree that sometimes, whether for sentimental values or maybe they're just on a really high contract and we can't get rid of them, we have kept players for too long. Now, whether you read into this that Tom Cleverley, Dan Gosling and Craig Cathcart are all going to leave the club on the expiration of their contracts, I don't know. But it is good to hear that they do feel that sometimes they have kept players for too long. I even think, going back to Troy Deeney's departure from Watford, I even think we maybe kept him for a season too long. Ismaila Sarr, another example. We could have got rid of him a couple of seasons ago for maybe a higher transfer fee than we'll get now. So it's good to hear. And I think with Watford, we should operate in the way that Brighton and Brentford do, really, where we buy players, we buy promising young players who have a lot of potential. We build them up to these, superstars who can play in, big leagues, big teams, sell them on for a profit. And I think that's the way Watford should look to operate. Build players up when they're ready to leave at the highest value, sell them on. And I think Brighton do, a sterling job of that. You look at Moises Caicedo, Alexis McAllister. They buy them in for, relatively small transfer fees, play them in good leagues, in good teams, with other good players around them, increase their value tenfold, exponentially, however you want to see it, and then sell them on and reinvest that money into the squad. And I think that's what Watford should look to do. And hopefully, Gino Pozzo admitting we have kept players for too long sometimes. Hopefully that's progress towards a better run club, if you will. Just, bringing players in, selling them on when we need to, and having that constant changeover of the squad rather than keeping players for, years and years and years. And ultimately, both sides get kind of fed up of each other, really. So I think that was a good admission by Gino Pozzo. Another quick point here that Scott Duxbury made, actually, and that was in regards to Ismaila Sarr's future at Watford. This come at the very start of the fan forum. I think a fan asked a question around player mentality and whether all the players wanted to be at the club. And Duxbury basically said, currently, every player wants to be here apart from Ismaila Sarr. So basically there, an admission from Scott Duxbury that Ismaila Sarr will be leaving Watford this summer. Hopefully for me, we can get the deal wrapped up pretty quickly. I'm sure there'll be Premier League clubs interested in Sarr. I'm sure there'll be clubs abroad interested in Sarr as well. Yes, in the past couple of seasons, he hasn't been as good as we hoped he could be. But I still feel like we can get a decent transfer fee for him, north of £10 million, hopefully. And again, as I mentioned earlier, hopefully, selling players as we need to sell them, reinvest that money into the squad, bring in some young, hungry players, and, get that process going as soon as possible. Now, the next question was in regards to finances. Now, I am by no means a financial expert, so do not quote me on anything I'm about to say. However, there was a lot of talk about Watford's debt and the financial position and the financial state the club is currently in. Now, apart from the debt owed to Gino Pozzo, the club hope to be debt-free by the end of next season. So apart from the debt we owe to Gino, who said he's not going to ask for that money back at all, we aim to be debt-free by the end of next season. So hopefully for fans who are concerned about Watford's financial state and our financial future, they said the club is currently being run sustainably. They got rid of big wages, big players. And yeah, as I said, apart from the debt owed to Watford owner Gino Pozzo, we aim to be debt-free to anyone else by the end of next season. So in regards to our finances, I think that is some good news as well. And before we wrap up this video, a couple of quick notable mentions I picked up from the fan forum as well. He was asked about Mogi Bayat. Of course, we've talked about him a lot on this channel. The controversial football agent currently under investigation in Belgium. He was asked about the club's relationship with him and whether, because he was under investigation, we would look to terminate the relationship with the agent. Gino Pozzo didn't really answer this question as well as he should have. He basically said that Watford need to maintain relationships with certain footballing agents to secure the best value deal for Watford Football Club. Obviously, we buy a lot of our players through Mogi Buyout, most notably Vacuum Bio come through Buyout, who's currently at the club at the moment. He was asked in regards to that. Again, didn't really answer the question. He just said basically, with certain agents, we need to keep good relationships with them to bring in the best players and bring in the best value deals for Watford. So that's all Gino Pozzo really said in regards to Mogi Buyout. And the last point I want to bring up is in regards to Hassan Kamara. Now, again, another controversial topic for Watford fans. This was highlighted in the media last season where, Watford taking advantage of the relationship between Udinese and Watford. And essentially, Scott Duxbury answered this question by saying there was no EFL investigation into the transfer of Hassan Kamara from Watford to Udinese. Obviously, Udinese brought him, loaned him back to Watford. And Duxbury basically said, yes, we are absolutely taking advantage of that relationship. Watford needed funds at the time. Udinese maybe needed a left back. They made the deal. He was loaned back to us for basically last season. And yeah, Scott Duxbury didn't really deny anything. He just said we're taking advantage of the relationship. There was no wrongdoing on our part or Udinese's part. And there was no EFL investigation into the transfer. So for me personally, that's positive. It seems like we're doing everything legally by the sounds of it. Obviously, we're taking everything as gospel as it comes from this forum. But yeah, in conclusion, I think that was quite positive. We didn't really learn loads. The points I've highlighted there was really all the new information we found out. I don't think we really learned anything else in regards to how we operate, what Gino's role is, what Duxbury's role is. I think that was clear to everyone before the forum. But, it's good to hear that, Gino Pozzo cares about the club. I think it's quite hard for us to know how much he cares when, he refused to speak to us for so long. He said he didn't like the public limelight. He doesn't use social media. But, speaking to fans for the first time in 10 years can only be seen as a positive, at least from my part. Am I Gino Pozzo out still? I don't think I was ever Pozzo out before. I was definitely, if a change could be made, a positive change with a new ownership, I was definitely up for that. But equally, I'm happy if Gino Pozzo stays. I'm happy with what I've seen from this fan forum. And yeah, hopefully, positive stuff happens going forward. And hopefully we will get promoted to the Premier League, or hopefully at least have a good go at getting into them player positions. We can only hope. Bit of a long video today. I do apologise, but I did think there was a lot to say. Again, 2-hour fan forum with the Watford owner. That doesn't come round every day. So I did feel it was right we do a video on what happened. And I hope you guys enjoyed as well. As I mentioned earlier, please subscribe to the channel by clicking the subscribe button down below. Let me know your thoughts on Gino Pozzo, Scott Duxbury and Watford moving forward, and leave a like on the video as well. It'd be much appreciated. And as I mentioned earlier, lots and lots of videos still to come this summer. Lots of transfers to be done in and out of Watford. The kit reveal still to come as well. The fixture releases next week. So there's so much happening at the moment, and I hope you guys will join me along the way. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again very, very soon. Bye-bye.